Hello, everyone, and welcome to SCORE Fairfield County's live webinar on starting a one-person consulting business. I'm Bob Hogan, the webinar coordinator today, and the business mentor here at SCORE Fairfield County. I'll be your host, and our presenter is Cliff Ennico. More on Cliff in just a minute, but first some brief information on SCORE. SCORE is a nonprofit national partner of the SBA. And Cliff, if I could ask you to just advance the slide, please. And we offer three primary value-added services to small business owners. First of all, we offer free one-on-one counseling, and you can access that through in-person meetings, video, telephone, email, whatever's most convenient to you. And you can do that by using the yellow bit.ly link that you see on the screen, or you can go to our website and click on the Request a Mentor link. Secondly, we offer a wide range of educational workshops and webinars like the one today, about 100 throughout the year. And lastly, we offer extensive resources on our website, including access to subject matter experts. Our next live webinar will be next Tuesday, March the 14th at noon. The topic is Increase Sales by Attracting More of Your Best Customers with Alexander Nouveau presenting. And you can find more specifics again on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. If you're on our website, we also have a large number of recorded webinars that on a wide range of topics, and you can access those anytime on demand. Just some logistics about today's event. We have set aside time for questions at the end of the presentation. Cliff will take as many as we can up until 1 o'clock. And if you have a question, though, you can type it in at any time using the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. Our webinar will end sharply at 1 o'clock to respect your time. The session is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be available within the next day or so on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. It's now my great pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Cliff Ennico. Cliff is a nationally recognized small business legal and tax expert and is best known as the former host of Money Hunt on PBS, where entrepreneurs defended their business plans before America's toughest panel of experts. An attorney and small business consultant based in Fairfield, Connecticut, Cliff has helped launch over 15,000 businesses. He is the author of 16 books, most recently the Crowdfunding Handbook, How to Raise Capital for Your Business Using Equity Funding Portals. I'll now turn it over to Cliff. Cliff, it's all yours.
Hey, thanks, Bob, and thank you for that lovely introduction. And I guess the best way to introduce myself is to say, as they do at certain other types of meetings, hi, my name is Cliff, and I am a consultant. I mean, I am a lawyer. I'm, admitted to practice in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, but really, I don't do any of the normal lawyer stuff. I don't do wills. I don't do divorces. God help you if you're ever in the drunk tank on a Saturday night. Please do not waste your one phone call on me because I don't even know where the courthouse is anywhere. What I've been doing for the last quarter century of my life and most of the 42 years that I've been practicing law is basically helping people like you get businesses off the ground. That's basically what I do. I have worked with over 15,000 people in the last 25, 26 years, and over 250 of them are consultants with their own practices. The consulting community keeps me very, very busy. And I am sort of a consultant myself here. So let's get started. This program is going to be divided into two parts, just so you know, because there was just so much material to cover. Bob and I decided to do this in two parts. Today, we're going to be focusing on getting started, and we're going to be focusing on marketing because those are the two most important pieces. When you're first starting out as a solo consultant, your first and biggest challenge is to find that first customer, the first client. And until you get there, life is going to be stressful. Once you get there, life kind of gets a lot easier. And you breathe a little bit better and you sleep better at night. So the goal for us is to get you there to that point as quickly as possible. But first, a couple of disclaimers. I am a lawyer, so I have to do it this way. My apologies. Just so you know, while I do a lot of work for SCORE, I've been actually doing programs for SCORE for 40 years now. I am not myself a SCORE counselor. I'm not part of the SCORE community, so anything I say is strictly me. Also, the second one is really the more important one. We are going to get into some legal and tax stuff, especially in the second half of this program, which is going to be on March 21st. And that stuff there's a big difference between giving legal information and giving legal advice. Hey, here's what the law is generally all about. That's legal information. Here, Joe, here's what you should do, and Bob, here's why you should do something different, and Mary, here's why you should do something different. That's one-on-one advice, which I really can't give any of you. I'll try to answer as many of your questions as possible, but I'm really not in a position to give any of you one-on-one advice. I'd have to know you a lot better before I can do that. So if I say something and you decide to do it and it doesn't work out and you end up, your business fails, you go bankrupt, you lose your house, your spouse divorces you, your kids don't talk to you anymore, the dog pees in your leg, and you're living in a diaper box under the Brooklyn Bridge, you can't sue anybody. Okay, so that's the basic message here. All right, so here's what we're going to cover today. This is what we're going to cover in two parts. Part one today, we're going to be covering the first two bullets here: basic decisions to make before starting your practice and marketing your consulting practice. Those are the two big things. So they're very, very important. Then on March 21st, which is 2 weeks from today at exactly the same time, we will be doing the last three bullets, which is negotiating the consulting contract. Hardly a day goes by that I'm not working on a consulting contract for one of my consulting clients, pricing your services, billing clients, and how to protect yourself against liability from getting sued by these people, by an unhappy client. So client handling, think of it that way. So let's see, should you consider consulting? Well, yes, if you are between jobs or looking for some extra retirement income, perhaps, consulting is a great way to do that. Certainly it's one way that you can get a little bit more control over your life than working for a boss, although not that much. I mean, consulting at the end of the day is still a service business. We're going to talk a lot about that in the next session on March 21st. Somebody once said the practice of law would be a wonderful thing if it weren't for the damn clients, and you're going to feel the same way about it as a consultant. If you are doing a portfolio career where you're doing a little bit of everything, you're working as a barista at Starbucks and you're moonlighting as a consultant at night, that a lot of people I know do that kind of stuff. It's a nice thing to do. Maybe as a sideline business to do on evenings and weekends. And the reason I say maybe is because clients can be incredibly demanding. I am technically on vacation this week, and I got a call this morning from somebody who just needed a response on the same day basis. And I can't hand him off to somebody else because I'm the only one who knows his business that well. So, life is like that, unfortunately. You were never really in control of your time 100%. Murphy's Law for a solo consultant is that you start a consulting business, it starts to build traction, and now you've got a situation where you've got too much business. You've got so much business that you need more than evenings and weekends to get it done, but you're still not making enough money to quit your day job. That's the problem with moonlighting as a consultant. Sooner or later, you reach that very unpleasant plateau where you've got too much work to fill in to do on just the weekends, but you've got a day job and you can't afford to quit it because the consulting's not giving you enough of a living income. That's Murphy's Law for the solo consultant. Murphy's Law, for those of you who don't know, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. That's Murphy's Law. And that's how it applies in the world of the solo consultant. No, if an agreement with your present or former employer prohibits you from doing so. If you are working for somebody else and you are planning to go on the consulting path, one of the very first things that you and I are going to work on, if I am your lawyer, is looking at all the agreements you've signed with your current employer and make sure that there's nothing in there that prevents you from starting a consulting practice. Those of you who have worked for a big company, you probably did sign something at some point in your career that says that when you leave, you will not solicit certain types of people. And we have to be very focused and look at that language very carefully to make sure that you don't inadvertently breach your agreement with your former employer, because they're nasty and they will sue you. If they think that you're trying to steal business away from them, they will get very, very nasty with you. So that's the thing. So let's start at the very beginning. So how do you decide what the service is going to be? Well, a lot of my clients who leave corporate America for a consulting career, they just figure that what they really want to do is they really want to replicate their old job again. That's what they want to do. They want to do the same stuff that they were doing in corporate America, but doing it as a 1099 rather than as a W-2 employee. And that may work. I mean, sometimes that works out, but sometimes doesn't. There's reasons why people hire big companies to do certain things, and you may find out that the kind of the customers who are wonderful to work with when you were a corporate employee now don't want to talk to you because you're a solo working out of your home with minimum insurance. That will happen. That could happen. I always tell people, and this maybe it's because I'm a lawyer, maybe because I'm biased this way. People do not call their lawyers when they're having a nice day. That's one of the fundamental rules about being a lawyer. People do not call you when things are going great. When do you call your lawyer? You call your lawyer when things aren't going so great in your life, and everything is a crisis, and you're constantly dealing with the negative side of what people do. But it's true of all service businesses as well. People do not pay you to do things that are fun, creative, and fulfilling. They just do not. They want you to do the dirty jobs. They want you to do the stuff that they do not want to do. They want you to handle the icky details that just they don't want to be bothered with. That's what they want to do. In my case, people hire me to draft their contracts for them. That's what they want me to do. I mean, they've cut a deal, they negotiated the business deal. That's the fun part. They never involve me on the business to negotiate the business deal because that's what they want to do. That's the fun part, getting all the statement of work stuff put together. Then they want the bloody contract put together, the legalese. And that's where they come to me because legal drafting contracts is dull, it's boring, and it's dangerous. I mean, if I get a contract wrong, my client could lose his business. He could lose his life if that contract doesn't read exactly the way it's supposed to. It's a very stressful way to make a living sometimes, and people want to transfer that stress to their attorneys. But you're going to find it's the same way too. I always tell people, and this sounds so cynical, but it really is the way. Find a dirty job. The dirtier, the better in your field, whatever your field may be. You know it better than I do. You know what it is. The kind of things that people and companies don't want to do themselves, but want to hire a 1099 consultant for, somebody outside the organization. So if they screw it up, they can blame the 1099 consultant. That's what's going on. Find a dirty job that nobody wants to do, but has to get done. Drafting legal contracts is a very good example of that. That people will actually pay you to do, and that people will pay people like you to do. That means that means there are certain types of work that certainly cannot be done by solo attorneys. I mean, if you came to me and you said, "Hey, Cliff, I'm taking my company public. We got some really heavy duty investors here. I'm ready for an IPO. We're going to file with the SEC. We're going to put together the prospectus and all the stuff that the securities laws requires." Well, I am a securities lawyer to some extent. I know how to do an IPO. I could certainly help you. The problem is I am a solo. I do not have a team of people working with me. So it's going to take 6 months probably of me working 10 hours, 12 hours a day, doing nothing else for the next 6 months. And I could get your IPO done, but you probably don't want to wait 6 months for this. You want to get it done in a week or two. That's why you go to the big firms, because they have teams of attorneys they can put together. They'll grind themselves into the ground 24/7 for the next week, and you'll get your IPO done. That's the thing. I mean, there's certain kinds of work that, no Fortune 500 corporation, no billionaire is going to call me and say, "Hey, Cliff, I want you to work on a $100 million deal." It's just not going to happen. They're going to go to the big firms. So somebody doing a $1 million acquisition or a $500,000 acquisition, yes, they will come to a Cliff Ennico because they want to save money, is what they're trying to do. So this is the thing. Find a dirty job, the dirtier, the better, that nobody wants to do but has to get done, and then charge lots of money for doing it. The cardinal sin of solo consultants, and I'll talk a little bit more about this on the next go around on March 21st when we do part 2, is the biggest sin is undercharging. When you're first starting out, it's very easy to say, "Well, I'm new. There are people out there like Cliff that have been doing this work for 42 years. I'm competing with him. I got to be the low cost provider here," and there's some truth to that. But don't sell yourself short. How many people would pay a lawyer $10 an hour? Let's say that a lawyer, somebody like me, was going out there, and you look at my ad on TV or something, and I'm billing out at $10 an hour. Is that a great deal? Wow, lawyer for $10 an hour. Something's wrong with this. Lawyers do not charge $10 an hour. Something's wrong. "Hey, Cliff, when did you get out of prison?" What's the story here? There's got to be, why are you $10 an hour? There's something not right about that. Be careful. We'll talk more about this on the next go around, but don't undersell yourself. That's the biggest thing. You should be charging enough that will make you a living wage. You should also be charging enough that's market for whatever types of consulting you do. We'll talk about that a little more next time. Okay, so now you've kind of decided what the services are going to be that you're going to offer to folks. And of course, be open-minded. People always like to steer you in a different direction, and that's a good thing. Okay, Cliff, I hear what I see the 5 things that you normally do. We need kind of number 4, but it's a little bit different. We got a little bit of a different situation over here because of X, Y, and Z. Listen to that, because that is how the marketplace tells you what they want. We'll talk more about this a little bit later today. So now let's talk about the big thing. Do you work out of a home office or a real office? Well, one of the biggest advantages of working out of your home is that doing a consulting business is that it can be done from a home office. You should be aware, I have a whole bunch of YouTube videos, by the way, for those of you who are really interested in this area. I go into a lot more detail on those than I do on these kind of programs. And I have a very good one. It's called From Cubicle to Home Office on YouTube. If you go to YouTube, if you search for Cliff Ennico, you'll get all of my 56 videos that I have up there. They're all about an hour each for people starting all kinds of small businesses. A lot of them won't be relevant to you, but this one definitely would be. And if you search for Cliff Ennico Home Office, you'll get right to it. It's a talk that I gave for SCORE a number of years ago. And it's still very valid about, some of the do's and don'ts of working from a home office. The most important thing about working from a home office is if you plan to see clients in your office, I never, ever recommend working from a home office. And for a number of reasons. One is just optics. If I'm going to an attorney to have a will done, I don't want to go to somebody's house and watch him playing Frisbee with his dog on the front lawn. That's not the image I want. This person is going to be responsible for making sure that my family is financially solvent for the next 50 to 100 years. I just don't feel comfortable with that. I want a different vibe. I want a different type of experience when I'm looking for that kind of a professional. But also too, people are always not the nicest of people. They steal things. Your spouse will not be happy with people traipsing, through the house, with their muddy feet and stuff. Maybe your dog, isn't so nice and they bite somebody. You have that kind of liability, which you wouldn't have. There are certain types of business that have to be conducted from a real office. And I go into a lot of detail on that in my YouTube video. So again, why not, why do I say that you should never see clients in your office if you work from a home office? It's making you more visible to your neighbors and community. Every town has a zoning law that says you cannot have a business in a residential zone. Okay, now having said that, there's 50 million home offices in the United States. So clearly, this is a set of laws that are not exactly being enforced, and they're not. Every town has a zoning law, but there are very few towns that have a zoning police force that goes around enforcing it. Nobody's going around knocking on people's doors saying, hey, you got a business here. The only time the zoning authorities wake up to you is when you are conducting your business in such a way that the neighbors start complaining about you. Hey, there's this guy across the street. He's got a neon sign, Cliff Ennico, attorney at law. It's flashing at night. The kids can't sleep. Their grades are falling behind in school. If the local kids cannot play basketball on the street because they're busy, you're too busy dodging UPS trucks that are going to your house every 10 minutes, chances are your business is a little too visible. I've been working out of my home now for 27 years. Nobody knows. Some of my neighbors don't even know that I do. I'm on the phone, I'm on my computer, I'm not making noise, I'm not visible. I use a UPS store mailbox as my mailing address, my 2490 Black Rock Turnpike that you'll see everywhere. That's a UPS store, so that I don't have to worry about packages and stuff like that. The key to a successful home office is to be invisible to your neighbors. That's the key. There's also the increased risk of slip and fall and dog bite type liability. If your dog just doesn't like one of your customers and champs them on the ankle. Not all clients and customers are nice people. Household items, your favorite antique, your wife's jewelry may start go missing. Your spouse, significant other will not want people traipsing through your home. Also, do you really want your clients and customers to see how you live or know where you live? A lot of my clients are nice. All my clients are very, very nice people, but I am very, very I never let them know where I live. I just don't. I don't want, I mean, it's just, I don't want that. I don't want a client knowing where my house is. I'm just, I'm big on privacy that way, and you should be as well. The key to home office success is invisibility. And I can't say this enough. So how do you achieve invisibility? What are some practical things you can do here? One, don't use your home address for business purposes. 123 Cherrywood Lane is not optically a great address for a business. It's clearly a residence. Don't use your home address for business. Use a UPS store private mailbox. A lot of people don't know this. The UPS stores where you ship stuff via UPS, they also have a private mailbox service. They used to be a separate franchise years ago called Mailboxes, etc., that merged with UPS about 20 years ago. Use that instead. It's a post office box, but it doesn't say PO Box 123. It's 123 Main Street, suite number 456. So it looks like a real address. My 2490 Black Rock Turnpike number 354, that is a UPS store mailing address. Every once in a while, I get a salesman or something that's looking for me at that address. They're looking for a law office. They don't realize it's just the local UPS store. Use that address. And make sure that all your business mail goes there. Also, it gets you out of the house at least twice a day. I mean, when you're working out of your home, I will tell you the loneliness factor becomes an issue. I used to joke years ago when I first started working out of the home of the iron triangle. Every week I would only see three places. I would see my home office, I would go to the UPS store, and then I used to work out at a local gym. That I used to call that the iron triangle. I was either going to the only time I ever got out of the house was either to go to the gym or to the UPS store to pick up my mail. It at least gets you out seeing carbon-based life forms every once in a while. The loneliness factor is something we'll talk about throughout this program. You have to be the kind of person that can work alone. There are some people I know who simply must have other people around them or else they freak out. I fortunately am not one of those people. I'm very much a lone wolf. So this lifestyle suits me very, very well. But there are a lot of people who are just not like that. And you have to know who you are. But definitely use that address. That will avoid a lot of again, it will make you invisible to your neighbors. If you need to meet your clients physically, so for example, every once in a while I have to do a closing. There's a local law firm that allows me to use their conference room space. And because I refer business to them, they don't charge me for that privilege. So if I do need to have a closing, an in-person closing for an SBA loan for one of my clients or something like that, I have access to that. I can make that happen, at no or very low cost to me. A lot of public libraries too have meeting rooms that are very, very good, and you can rent them by the hour. It's that kind of thing. See clients at their offices whenever possible or in a neutral location. Diners are wonderful places to meet clients. First of all, they have everything on the menu. Whatever if it's not on the menu, they'll make it for you. I mean, I'm a very big diner fan. When I was first starting my practice, my solo practice, 27 years ago, I lived at diners. I gained 15 pounds my first year of being on my own because of this. Also, too, I find that diners, if you go at the off times, when they're not that busy, they'll let you sit there for 2 or 3 hours and do your business. As long as you keep refilling your coffee or your Diet Pepsi, they'll let you sit there. It's not like a 4-star restaurant where they want to churn that table as soon as possible. Again, consistent with your brand image. Now, I work a lot with entrepreneurs. I work a lot with people running their own businesses. They're working out of their homes as well. So they're not offended by meeting me at a local diner. That doesn't bother them. Now, if I was working with a different type of client, they might not, that $1 billion, person who wants me to do their estate planning or something like that. I mean, I don't do wills, but that would not be a good fit, for meeting in a diner. That's not the kind of lawyer you want to meet at a diner. But for me, it works extremely well. Avoid noise, especially at night. Lots of cars in your driveway or any noxious odors that will give you away. Now, most of you are not doing this kind of consulting, but believe it or not, there's actually a case on the books. It's from Indiana about some guy that was running a meat rendering plant. You know where that is, where they tear apart carcasses and stuff like that? that. He was doing this in his basement, and he was able to get away with it for about 10 years before his neighbors turned him in. I do not know how he got away with that for 10 years. The smells must have been horrible. But so anyway, just try whatever your kind of consulting is. I mean, hopefully it doesn't involve, noxious odors, but just watch out for people sitting on your lawn, waiting to see you. That's another reason not to see clients in your home. Okay, let's talk about the resources that you need to get started. Okay, there are 7 things that you need here. I think I got it down right. 7. You do, even though we are living in an increasingly digital world, I find it very helpful to have business cards and stationery printed up. I have a certain professional image that I like to maintain with my correspondence. I still do a lot of things with dead trees. Some of you will be doing it as well. And you want to maintain a professional image. I use a very good company for those of you who know. It's called Tuttle. Tuttle.com, Tuttle.com. They're up in Rutland, Vermont, and they just do a marvelous work. They do everything with phone, fax, email, but the physical stationery, I mean, you still are going to be in an environment that people will want to see a business card. I'm down here in Marco Island, Florida. I had dinner last night with a client who brought another couple there, and they are starting a business sometime soon. So they wanted to know my business card. I had them right there. We are still somewhat in a dead trees world yet. We are not completely digital yet. We're getting there, and we will probably be there in another 10 or 20 years. But it's still helpful to have the printed stuff and do it right. Make it look professional. I can always tell when someone did their stationery on a home computer. It's not the image you want to present. Should you have an LLC? I think the answer is yes. It does give you a little bit of protection against liability, especially breach of contract liability. Your contracts must always be signed by your LLC, not by you individually, because when you form an LLC, you are putting a wall up between your business assets and your personal assets. And with an LLC in place, they can only get to the business assets if something goes wrong and they want to sue you. They can't get to your personal assets. So it's a good thing to do. It won't protect you against all liability, but it will protect you against most, and also makes you look a lot bigger than you really are. Canterbury Consulting LLC looks a lot more professional than Cliff Ennico Tech Consultant, whatever kind of work you're doing. You need contract forms. We're going to talk about contracts a lot in the next session on March 21st. But the bottom line is you do need to have some basic contracts put together. I actually have a deal where I do it for a flat fee, which is currently $800. I give you all the contracts that you need. It even includes an hour and a half of telephone time, to help you get started with that. Make sure you have good contracts. A lot of your clients are going to be on the smaller side. They will not have contracts of their own. They will expect you to have a form of contract that they can sign. A book, e-book, or downloadable articles. Bob said that I was the author of 16 books. He's actually right. I'm finishing number 17 even as we speak, from one of the legal publishers. Let's put it this way. It's very hard for someone like me to say that I am one of the leading small business attorneys in the United States. That's a meaningless statement. I probably am, but what does that mean? There's gazillions of other attorneys out there that work with small businesses, and they're all pretty good. But if I say that I'm the author of 16 books on how to run a small business, that's instant credibility. You're not going to question, do I know what I'm doing? That question will not come up when you've written that many books. I'm not saying you have to write 16 books, but you should write something like a downloadable, an ebook, or something that you can send to clients. By the way, if you're interested in doing this, here's my latest book on crowdfunding. Wow. That's just an incredible marketing tool. Incredible. No one's ever going to look at it. They're never going to read it. But, the goal is not for them to read it. The goal for this is to say, wow, this guy, I'm not just dealing with some schmo, who works out of his home office. This is somebody who's I should be working with, and I'll pay the extra, $100 an hour that he's charging because he's worth it. That's what you want to have happen. A website and a LinkedIn profile. Now, here's one of my pet peeves. I know it's 2023. I know it's all about smartphones and social media and all this. I'm not stupid. I work in the tech space myself. I know all these things are out there, but I will tell you that when I hear about somebody who does a certain type of work, and when I see that they do not have a website of their own, That is an instant credibility kill for me right there. I'm saying, okay, this person is not, I mean, lawyers are actually, believe it or not, they're the biggest offenders here. I refer a lot of business to other attorneys because there's a lot of work I don't do. And it really bothers me when I go to look the attorney up and I can see their Yelp reviews. I can see there's a review site called Avo that's for attorneys, avo.com. I can see all their reviews, but I can't see them. I don't see, if I am dealing with Cliff Ennico, I expect you to be cliffennico.com. What's so hard about this? Take a look at my website, by the way, cliffennico.com. That is my website. I always go by Cliff, by the way, never Clifford. Take a look at my website. I mean, it's nothing fancy. I'm never going to win any awards for this. It's just a one-page marketing brochure, but you can always find Cliff Ennico at cliffennico.com. And the other thing you need to have is a LinkedIn profile. I mean, LinkedIn profiles, will you get business from there? Maybe so, maybe not. I find I don't really get a lot of pull from LinkedIn. But what it is, again, it's another place on the web where people can find out about Cliff Ennico. If someone hears my name and they look me up, one of the first things that they'll see is my LinkedIn profile. So spend a little time, get it done right. There are some consultants out there that do a lot of work with LinkedIn. I personally work with two very, very good LinkedIn consultants. Their names are Mark Halpert and Sandra Long. Send me an email. I'll be happy to send you a referral. These people do nothing but help you put together your LinkedIn profile the right way. It's well worth paying them to do that the right way. Let's talk about insurance now. When I talked about LLCs before, I did say that when you put an LLC up, you're putting a wall between your business assets and your personal assets. So if someone's trying to sue you, they can get to your business assets, but they can't get to your personal stuff. Okay. Well, what about those business assets? Let's say that you've been in consulting and now you're worth about $100,000. You could probably sell your practice for that. Well, that's why you still need insurance on those things. There are two kinds of insurance that you need. One is called general liability. Sometimes it's called commercial liability. This is slip and fall insurance. If you're not seeing clients in the home and you're working out of a home office, you probably don't need a huge policy of commercial liability, but it's always a good idea to have a small one, maybe for $500,000 worth of coverage, because you will probably be doing work on your client's premises. And if you do something stupid while you are on their premises, they will want that to be covered by your coverage, not by their coverage. The insurance clause in a consulting contract is one of the most frequently negotiated clauses, and we'll talk about that in the next program when we talk about contracts. The second type, and by the way, you can get what's called an umbrella policy, which frankly, it's usually a lot cheaper than a policy of general liability. If you're working out of a home office, that's probably the only thing you need is a good umbrella policy. Talk to your insurance agent about options. The second type of policy that you need is errors and omissions. E&O, this is malpractice insurance for people that are not professionals like lawyers, doctors, architects. If you're a computer consultant, a tech, and you cause a virus to get onto your computer system and they get a malware hack or something like that, you are screwed, basically. You will need, it depends on the type of consulting that you do. But in my view, anybody that's in the business of providing professional advice must have some kind of malpractice insurance, and it's called errors and omissions, E&O coverage. You do not need workers' comp coverage. One of my biggest pet peeves when I see a consulting contract is they'll say that you must have workers' comp. That is not true. If you are in somebody's employee, you are covered by workers' comp, but you are not covered by workers' comp if you are an independent contractor, a 1099. You do not have to sign up for workers' comp. You do not have to pay into that system in Connecticut or anywhere else that I am aware of. As a solo person working as a 1099, you are not subject to the workers' comp thing. Any client that wants you to sign a clause saying you will carry workers' comp insurance, that has to be negotiated out. Okay. All right, so let's talk about employee versus independent contractor. This is an area that a lot of people really get wrong, and the IRS knows about it. It's one of the most heavily audited areas in the tax code, is this whole thing. A lot of people out there think, well, I can just have a contract with a client, and as long as it says I'm an independent contractor, I'm an independent contractor. That is not true. The IRS has the power on audit to actually look at your contract, and they can set it aside if they think it's not real. They don't look at the contract. They look at your actual way in which you work for your clients. And if you look and smell like like an employee, they will reclassify you as an employee. And that has very serious consequences, not so much for you, but for your clients. But if you ever are working with a client and you end up getting reclassified as an employee, they will hate you. And they may try to take it out of your hide, and they will. In most consulting agreements that I work on, there's a clause that says specifically, if you do something that causes you to be reclassified as an employee for tax purposes, you will indemnify us for that. You'll pay our legal expenses, and you'll pay what we owe the IRS, because that was your fault, Chucko. That clause is in just about every consulting contract that I ever see. Here's the deal. It really boils down to this: if the client has the ability to direct and control your activities, you are an employee. You are not an independent contractor or a 1099. It doesn't matter what your contract says. And also the hours, the number, a lot of people say, as long as I'm working less than 10 hours a week, well, I'm not an employee. No, you can be a part-time employee. I have a lot of clients who have someone that they hire just 1 day a week to manage their store, to run their restaurant, whatever. Even if you're just working 1 day a week, you're a part-time employee, as long as you have to be there every Wednesday from 8 to 5. Okay, watch out for if a client says that they must work a specific time each week. So for example, you always have to work Thursday afternoons from 12 to 4. That's an employment relationship. If you cannot work for other people during that time frame, that's an employment relationship. During that time, they can direct and control your activities. Working at the client's office a set number of hours every week. You must work a minimum of 17 hours a week. Be careful about that, because that's starting to look now, during those 17 hours, however we schedule it, you work only for them. See, the key to being an independent contractor is you have to have the ability to work for other people. When you're, certainly when no one will ever say that I am your employee. No one will ever say that, because I'm very difficult to get hold of. At any given time, I'm working for 5 or 6 other clients. I got to squeeze you in somehow. You can certainly give me a deadline. You can say, hey, Cliff, I need this contract looked at by Friday because I'm meeting with the guy and I want to have your comments by then, your input by then. That is perfectly fine. But between me now and Friday, I get to decide when I work on your contract, when I work on Mary's, when I work on Joe's, when I work on Bob's. I'm the one who decides at any given moment what I do. None of my clients can interrupt this webinar right now and say, hey, Cliff, stop this webinar, get off. I need you to do a contract, and I need you to do it in a half an hour. I need it right away. You can't do that to me. That's what makes me an independent contractor. I am in control of when I do things at a given time. I mean, at least in theory, it doesn't work as well in practice, but certainly in theory, I'm in control of my time, and that's the way it has to be with you. If I can't, here's the example that I always use. Let's say that you're an eBay seller, for example. Let's say you're selling stuff on eBay, and I'm one of your people. Okay, if you have the ability to do this to me, hey, Cliff, stop what you're doing right now. I know it's important, but we just got a big order from someone. The UPS store is going to close in about a half an hour. I really want to get this stuff out today. I want to give the customer a good shipping experience. Help me pack these boxes and load up the truck. And as soon as I head out to the UPS store, you can go back and finish whatever it was you were working on. If you have the ability to jerk me around like that, I'm an employee. I am not an independent contractor. Just keep that in mind in example. That's why I say that there's a myth that a consultant with only one client is an independent contractor, and I don't think it's true. Someone working 50 hours a week for a single client is an employee, not an independent contractor, because you don't have the practical ability to work for somebody else. Even if your client says that you're an independent contractor, if you only have one client and they're working you 50, 60 hours a week, how the hell can you work for somebody else? That's a problem. Keep in mind too, that and also another myth too, which a lot of clients have, is that if you form a single member LLC, that somehow makes you no longer an employee, because an LLC cannot be an employee, only a human being can. That is not true of single member LLCs. It is true for multi-member LLCs, but it's not true for single member LLCs. So keep that in mind. That doesn't mean you shouldn't form a single member LLC. As I said before, I think you should. But just keep in mind that it's not going to protect you against, but don't tell your clients that. Let them persist in their illusion. Again, this is not so much a problem for you. It's more their problem. They're the ones who are going to be on the hook for failing to pay FICA, FUTA, Medicare tax on your consulting fees if you are ever reclassified as an employee. That's their risk, not yours. But some clients will want you to indemnify for that. So you do care about it to that extent. Okay, let's talk about pricing your services. Like I said before, the biggest mistake that people make is underpricing yourself. Find out what your competition charges and give your clients a little bit of a discount. You should give them a little bit of a better deal because you're new, but only 10 to 20% max. How do you find this information? Call them. Pretend to be a client. Say, I'm thinking about doing a project, and whatever. Just out of curiosity, what's your fees? I get a lot of calls sometimes from people who want to price me out. They already have another attorney that they want to use, but they frankly want to use me as a way of jerking that price down. I never get offended by that because usually I am the lower cost option. But I don't stop that kind of thing. Never underprice yourself. People will take advantage of your ignorance. I hate it when I see somebody deliberately undercharging themselves because they're afraid if they don't, they're not going to get in business. Here's a good litmus test. If clients are not complaining or pushing back on your fee quotes, your fees are probably too low. That sounds cynical as hell, but it is really, really true. Whenever I find myself talking to somebody and I say, well, how much is it? $400 an hour, and there's no pushback, I start to think, maybe I'm below market here. Something's wrong here. I mean, these people should be pushing back at this a little bit to me. Because I will tell you, whenever you underprice yourself, there are two kinds of people out there. The nice people out there will just simply say, well, you know what, you're too cheap. There's something wrong with this. I'm going with somebody else. Those are the nice people. The people that are not nice are the people who realize you're ignorant and will say, you know what, Cliff, I know you're charging $100 an hour, but I got to tell you, man, I can get somebody out there who can do it for 75. I'll do you a favor on this one deal because I know you're hungry, you're looking for business. I'll let you do this for $75 an hour, but just so you know, I mean, your fees are just way too high. In reality, the next nearest competitor is at $250 an hour. Be careful because people will take advantage of your ignorance that way. There are a lot of not nice people out there. Whenever you are working 60 hours a week and you're not making a living wage, you will end up hating your clients and you will hate your life. And that's a very dangerous thing. First of all, it's not a very pleasant place to be. But I also find that when you hate your clients, you kind of want to get back at them in some way. And so that's when you're at risk of screwing something up or taking a shortcut that you shouldn't be taking and getting into some serious trouble, maybe even legal trouble, because you just don't like your client and you just don't want to give them the service that they're entitled to. That's a problem. Even if you undercharge yourself, you still have to give your client the professional quality service that you advertise. That's a dirty part of the consulting world here. You can't say, well, I'm not getting paid my regular rate, so I won't answer his phone calls for 2 days. You can't do that. That's the problem. Keep in mind this. I always pick, whenever you're in doubt about what your right price should be, overcharge. Go high. Because if you overcharge, you can always cut it back. $500 an hour. Oh God, I can't afford that. That gives you the option, if you want to cut back a little bit and say, all right, I got to tell you, it's normally $500 an hour. A lot of people don't mind paying me that, but I understand your situation. This is kind of an easy project. I don't think it's going to take more than a couple of hours of my time. I'll do it for $400, but only this one time. Let's try us out. Let's see if we're a good fit for each other. If it works out, though, on the next project, I'm going to charge you my regular $500 rate, but I'll do this one time for $400. It gives you the chance to discount. That's a win-win too, because the client thinks that they're getting a deal. Okay, so it's kind of a win-win for the both of you. But but once you undercharge, it's very tough to raise prices. Every 2 or 3 years, I do raise my hourly rate. $25 an hour. We're in an inflationary environment right now, so hey, things cost more, and I cost more. But I got to tell you, man, when I raised my hourly rate, people squeal like stuck pigs. They do. Cliff, what are you doing? You're up $25 an hour. What am I getting more for that $25 an hour? Well, you're still getting Cliff Ennico. That's it. Hey, the price of eggs have gone up. I mean, I have to charge this much. It's very hard to raise your prices. Once people see you as $100 an hour something, it's very hard to get them to see you as a $200 an hour something, no matter what your field is. Here are the 3 biggest mistakes consultants make: underpricing themselves, especially at the beginning; selling too soon before understanding the client's fears and passions. I have a whole YouTube video on selling. It's called, I've actually done it for SCORE too. I think it's one of the archive programs on SCORE that you can get from the Fairfield County SCORE website, called How to Sell Just About Anything to Just About Anybody. It's probably my best video that I've ever done. I've got over 350,000 views on YouTube on this video. Take a moment out of your life, search for Cliff Ennico How to Sell on YouTube. Take an hour out of your life and it'll change the way you look at everything. Also, staying inside the box and not taking on projects that require a learning curve or stretch. I mean, I get calls every day from clients that want me to do things that are just a little bit of an angle to what I normally do. And I've learned over the years to listen to that, because when the client asks for something, well, I want to do this, but I want to do it in a slightly different way. That's the way the market is going. And if I don't adapt and learn how to do this particular contract a different way, I'm going to lose out. And that's the thing. And whenever someone asks you to do something that's a little bit funky, listen carefully. Don't just assume that it's a funky situation. This may be nature's or the market's way of telling you, hey, Cliff, things are changing. From now on, these deals are now going to be done this way rather than that way, and you better adapt. I mean, let's face it, during the pandemic, 2 years ago, I had never heard of Venmo.com, Zelly.com, this is one called Veeam.com. I mean, these are all payment solutions where you can use your credit card to pay debts to people. I didn't even know that these things existed. Today, I take payment from all 3. And if there's others out there, I will take payment that way too. You have to adapt and change. Things are constantly changing in this world. And if you don't adapt, you die. Okay, let's talk about marketing. This is a very important topic. If there's one thing I have learned in 42 years of working with small businesses and 27 years of those years being on my own, it's that marketing is the key to success in any small business. If you do it well, you stand a very good chance of success. If you do it poorly, you will fail. It's 100% guarantee. How well you sell determines, no matter how busy I get, and Lord knows I'm very busy these days, I always take time out to do programs like this, give talks to local business groups, do articles for various, online publications and stuff like that, because I find if I stop doing that stuff, sooner or later, the phone is going to stop ringing, the email inbox is going to be empty. That's how it is when you're a solo consultant. You got to constantly, you have to constantly do it. If you're starting out as a solo consultant and you are not putting at least 25% of your time into marketing activities, you are not giving that the time that it deserves. People don't buy your services, they buy you. You have to get yourself out in front of people. Even, if you're a shrinking violet, if you're an introvert, that's a little bit more difficult to do depending on your field, but you got to get out there and let people see who you are and get them to want to do business with you. There are 4 pillars of a marketing strategy when you're a solo consultant. This is what works for me. 2, your involvement in organizations and trade groups, your personal interaction with clients and referral sources, what we call an elevator pitch. You meet somebody and you have to tell them what you do. Your public speaking strategy and your website and LinkedIn profile. Let's take each one of these in turn, and then we'll open the floor for questions. Okay, organizations and trade groups. What groups do you join? All right, join the local chamber of commerce if that's what you're into. But to be honest with you, I find chambers of commerce, I don't get business out of that because they're just too large and diverse a group of people. Half the people there need somebody to do real estate and wills, and I don't do either of those things. I don't want to waste time in my day referring people to other attorneys unless it's coming from a very good referral source. What you want are organizations that have lots of potential clients and referral sources. I do belong to some bar associations, but I find I don't get referrals from other attorneys. I belong to them for other reasons, for education opportunities and stuff like that, but I don't go there to get clients. What I'm looking for is organizations that have lots of small business clients and relatively few other attorneys in them. That's what I look for. You're looking for organizations that have lots of potential customers and relatively few other people that do what you do. Look for as few competitors as possible. Look for a low flake ratio. This is a Cliff Ennico thing. I'm the only person who uses this term. The flake ratio of an organization is the ratio of flaky people to total population. Okay, every organization has a few flaky people in it, but if there's lots of flaky people in there, that's an organization you don't want to belong to. There was an organization in Fairfield County many years ago. I don't think they still exist. It was an entrepreneur's organization. I'll just leave it at that. I attended one of their luncheon meetings once, and the person that's sitting next to me was a person whose idea was great idea, because you have to stand up and tell people what you are, what you're going to do. He got up there and says that he was looking for funding for, and I swear to God, he wanted to do an off-Broadway musical play, all naked actors, an all naked play based on Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. That was his thing, and he was deadly serious about that. And I looked at that person, I looked at this organization, I said to myself, I shouldn't be here because people are judging me. They think I'm the same as this guy. Okay, again, if when you hang out with flakes, people will assume that you are a flaky person. That's a basic law of human nature, as far as I'm concerned. If there are a lot of flaky people in your organization, you should not be there. If you are in a good organization, roll up your sleeves, get involved. Never pass up a PR opportunity. That's why you join organizations, is to get your name, your picture in the papers, something like that. All right, let's talk. That's organizations. Talk about personal networking. Okay, your elevator pitch. Okay, I used to do a lot of networking meetings. I don't, because quite frankly, they meet too early in the morning for me. They're starting to come back now, post-pandemic. But you cannot get my butt out of bed for a meeting in Stamford at 7 a.m. in the morning. I'm sorry. I mean, even with 3 cups of coffee, I'm going to sleep through that. It's not going to happen. But I used to do it a lot. And the first thing that happens, you walk in the door and some creep comes up to you and hands you a business card. You don't even know who they are, and they're sticking a business card in your face, because that's what they are. They're desperate for business. Never talk about what you do. I never say, whenever I say, so Cliff, what do you do? I never say I'm a lawyer, because that L word carries a lot of baggage with it. And I don't know you well enough to know what that baggage is. If you've had a bad experience with an attorney, chances are you hate attorneys. So the minute I say I'm a lawyer, I've just turned you off. What I do instead, I get people, I get people talking about how I make their lives better. Well, I'm Cliff Ennico. I'm really a consultant. I help people, with small businesses get off the ground and run their businesses more successfully. That's a better description of what I do than to say I'm a lawyer. Once I get to know you a little better, then I'll drop the L word, but I don't do it right away. Again, unless you know a person very well, you don't really know what kind of label they're going to put on you. I'm an insurance salesman. Oh, so you're desperate for business. Okay, that's my response when somebody says that. Get your customers talking about your fears and passions, what turns them on, what keeps them awake at night. These are if you watch my YouTube video on how to sell, these are the 2 things we talk about with everybody when we get together with them. They're the easiest things for people to talk about. Your elevator pitch, who your clients are, how you improve their lives, your competitive advantage, and a compelling story to help them remember you. So years ago, I had a little publishing business, and this was my elevator pitch for that publishing business. Then we'll close on this note, and we'll take some questions. Okay, here's my question. Hi, I'm Cliff Ennico, president of Bienix Corporation. We are the leading publisher of books, audio tape programs, and webinars for lawyers to help them manage their practices better. We're not teaching them how to be better lawyers. We're teaching them how to be more successful and attract more clients. One of our books, The Legal Job Interview by Cliff Ennico, was the book most frequently stolen from law libraries around the country, according to a recent librarian survey. Okay, that was my pitch. Now, think how effective that was. Okay. Now, if I had come up to you and I said, hey, guys, I'm Cliff Ennico from Bienix Corporation. We're a law book publisher that specializes in the legal career vertical. That would have been a totally accurate statement, but it wouldn't have landed with any of you. I'm using jargon. Legal publishing? Ugh, how dull is that? I mean, you picture a person who publishes law books. He's got dust all over him. That's the thing. It's not a sexy thing. What I did was instead of telling you I'm a law book publisher, I said, We publish books, audio tape. Remember the cassette programs, the plastic albums? We used to do that. Books, audio tapes, and seminars for lawyers to help them manage their careers better. That's the competitive advantage. We're not writing law books about the law and what it is. We're helping lawyers become more successful at their practices. And then I told you that story about the legal job interview book, which, by the way, is 100% true. The American Association of Law Librarians does an annual survey of their members, and one of the questions is, what books are being stolen? Are disappearing from your library. And for 3 years in a row, my book was the book most frequently stolen from law libraries around the country. Now, it doesn't say much for the ethics of my profession, ladies and gentlemen, but it's wonderful dust jacket copy. You cannot buy dust jacket copy like that. I mean, our books were selling like hotcakes because of that, because other people, I mean, how bad can a book be if people are stealing it from libraries? I guarantee that 3 months from now, when you have forgotten everything else about this program, you are going to remember that you attended a webinar with a guy who wrote a book that was so good it was being stolen from libraries around the country, which is why I told you about it, because that will stick in your head longer than other people does. Whenever you meet people and you're marketing, you have to be memorable. People have to remember who you are. I'm not going to remember who any of you are after this webinar is over, and I'm sorry to tell you that, but it's the absolute truth. I won't remember. You're going to have to remind me, hey, Cliff, I heard you speak at a SCORE seminar. Then, oh, okay, now I'm in the zone and I know what I'm doing. Okay, for those of you I'm going to leave these things up for just a second. We don't have a time, unfortunately, to get through them, and I apologize for that. Public speaking is a wonderful way to build business for a solo practice. Just watch your diet, because you're going to be you're going to be talking at a lot of lunch and dinner meetings, and you're going to gain weight. Keep up your gym membership. And then last but not least, these are the things that should be on your website and your LinkedIn thing. Be very careful if you're going to put your photo up on your website or your LinkedIn thing. Make sure a professional takes your picture. I mean, when I look at somebody's website and there's a photo and the face is one that will frighten small children, it's an instant turnoff. Have the photo professionally done. There's no law that says you have to have your photo on your website. I mean, if you truly have a face that makes small children cringe and run for their moms, maybe you should keep it off the website. Seriously, most people don't care what their consultants care about. What they care about is, can you do the job and can they afford you? Those are the two things that they care about more than anything else. And those are the two things that should be on your website. So with that, we still have a few minutes left. Bob, let's take a couple of questions. These are some of my best-selling books, by the way. And for those of you who are interested, this is where you can find out a little bit more about me. Check out my YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and search for Cliff Ennico, just like this. And you'll see some of my YouTube videos. I have whole 1-hour programs on each one of the slides that I presented today. So Bob, let's take a look at the chat room here and let's see if we can answer some questions.
Okay, thanks, Cliff. We do have 4 or 5 minutes for questions here, and we'll take as many as we can. Going back, Cliff, there's one here regarding registering your LLC. Can you register it with a UPS address?
The answer is yes, you can. I do LLCs for my clients all the time, and in the states of Connecticut and New York, I have never had trouble. What they do not like are PO boxes. So that's the one you can't use.
Okay, perfect. We have one from Kurt. Do you advise doing consulting jobs for no charge to get experience before charging clients?
The answer is yes. I would definitely have an agreement, though, with the client that says that I am only going to be doing this. I mean, try to put a limit on your time. I do some pro bono work for nonprofit organizations. I never do them for for-profit organizations, but I always make it very clear that I will not devote more than 2 or 3 hours a week to their project. Nonprofits especially tend to be time vampires. They need a lot of service, and because they're very nice people, they assume that you are as passionate about their mission as they are, and that can be a problem. Beware. Free clients tend to be time vampires, so limit your time. Say, I will do this, because let's face it, if you pay, one of the worst, dumbest things you can do is to commit 50 hours to a pro bono project, a project that you're doing for nothing, and then a week later, a paying client comes and says, I'll pay you $500 an hour. Now you got a problem. So try to limit it in some way. By all means do it, but don't make it a habit, and don't let them see you as a for free client consultant forever. I said, well, this is fine. Just to let you know, I'm just getting started, and I'm happy to do a couple of things without charging you, just to show you what I can do, but that's going to end someday. And you should be aware that the minute a paying project comes along, I'm gone. And that has to be clearly understood. Go ahead.
Okay, Cliff, we have a question from Barbara going back to the independent contractor versus the employee, saying, I assume it is fine to have a regular weekly call like Mondays from 11 to 12 with a client. I sometimes move it or cancel. We'll do this for weeks or months at a time so I can arrange milestones.
Okay, the regular call doesn't bother me as long as it's something that moves around a lot. It just, I mean, if it's always from 12 to 1, try to vary it a little bit. But for 1 hour a week, I'm not really that worried about something like that. What I'm more worried about is the situation where they want to block off an afternoon or a day of your time. That's starting to look more like a part-time employment situation. The more time they are demanding of you, the more likely it is that will be looked at. And make sure always, so try not, what I would suggest is that you try to stagger it a little bit, stagger the schedule so that it's very clear that you're in control of your time.
Okay. And there's a related one on this topic. What if you run workshops for a client that are date and time specific?
That is okay, as long as, again, try to vary the time as much as possible. I mean, I do these webinars for SCORE, and they're always at the same time. They're always, Tuesdays from 12 to 1, but no one is ever going to say that I'm an employee of the SCORE organization because I'm not doing them, every week, 52 weeks a year. If you're doing something like that, well, let's put it this way. It's starting to look a little bit like an employment relationship, but if that's the only thing that you are doing that makes you an employee, odds are you probably will not have a problem with the IRS. If they are paying you for these webinars, if you are using their resources, if they are putting their name on your content, those are the kind of things that make it look a little bit more like an employment relationship. I'd have to know a little bit more about the specific situation to give you a read on that.
Okay, we have time for a couple more here from Mayo. How many organizations or trade groups do you suggest as they cost? And a related one, how do you ask competition for quotes, getting to your, when you were talking about setting your prices?
Okay, I'll answer the second question first. I'm not sure I heard the first one, but the second question is, do as much competitive intelligence as you can. Have a friend call up and pretend to be a client and just see, what their hourly rates are, that kind of thing. If you're a professional in your field, you kind of know, especially if you come out of corporate America, what outside consultants were consulting for their first services. So that should be a good place to start with something like that. But if you don't know, just, pretend. Go out there, pretend to be a client, or have a relative do it or something like that, so it can't be traced back to you. But do whatever you can, and if you just can't get it any other way, take a silly wild ass guess and go high. Try $300 an hour, and people may say yes. In which case that's the best way to go. Look online. Any consultant of any worth has a website where they talk about how much they charge. If you're a lawyer, you're going to be looking at my website because I put my fees right up there. And I'm very confident doing that. I'm sorry, but what was the first question?
Yeah, it's just how many trade groups and organizations would you suggest that people join for as part of the marketing, because they can be expensive to belong to multiple?
Yeah, the answer is yes. They're a good part of your marketing mix, but you have to be very choosy. You should basically, when you're first starting out, maybe you should join, a couple, but look at the return on investment. If you're belonging to 4 organizations and one of them just isn't drawing for you, you're not meeting the right kind of people. It's always the same people. This is my big thing with networking groups. I'll be honest with you, I'm a little biased. I am not a fan of networking groups. They meet too early in the morning, and they're always the same 10 people that are looking to refer business to each other. To me, that's a waste. I want to keep my options open. Number one, as to who I refer to. I mean, if I don't think that if you're in my group and I don't think you're a good fit for a client, I don't want to have to refer business to you because that's the rules of the group. I don't want to be tied into something like that. But also too, I also find that I don't get the quality people from the networking groups. I do a lot better with my own marketing, especially from my public speaking for organizations. That's my big thing. I learned very early on that I have a voice. I'm a good speaker. I'm good in the moment. I'm not afraid to get up into in front of a group of strangers and risk making a fool of myself. I wasn't born with that gene. So and Bob is smiling because he knows I've been doing this for a very, very long time for SCORE. This has been a very effective method for me. Now, if you're more of a shrinking violet and you don't like getting out in front of people, that's going to be tricky, but there are other things you can do. But the point is, get out and let people see who you are. I can speak as an attorney. The only three things that people care about when it comes to hiring an attorney is, can he do the job? Can I afford him? And can I relate to him? Can I communicate with him? Or is he one of those guys that's going to be looking down his glasses at me, judging me because I did something stupid and I got into trouble with the IRS? I learned over the years that as a lawyer, I have to humanize myself. People are afraid of lawyers. Let's face it, when you're calling a lawyer, you're not having a nice day. You're scared, you're frightened, and you're also afraid I'm going to overcharge. I try to put all those fears to rest immediately at the initial meeting and say, look, I actually did this to a client this morning. I said, let me tell you something. There's only one thing I promise all my clients, and I don't charge extra for it. I'm going to make you laugh. That's my goal. At least once during our relationship, I'm going to make you laugh, because you got to have a sense of humor when you're dealing with this crap. You have to be. That humanizes me to people. Now, maybe you can do the same thing to your clients. You're certainly welcome to use anything that I do is not copyrighted. You're welcome to use it. I would actually love to hear from some of you. I know you have a lot of questions here. If you have time, shoot me an email. You have my email address right up there in front of you. Send me an email. I may not be able to get to you for a few days. Like I said, I'm on vacation this week, but I will, as soon as I can, I'll get back to you, and I'll offer you something that will be helpful. Just be patient with me. Bob, thanks again for having me. It's always a pleasure to work for Fairfield County SCORE.
Great. Appreciate it. As Cliff said, we're a few minutes over, so that's all the time we have for questions. Just a reminder that the webinar has been recorded, and you can access that from our website within the next day or so under on-demand webinars. And our next webinar will be a week from today, and the topic is increased sales by attracting more of your best customers, with Alexander Nouveau presenting. And again, if you'd like to take advantage of the free individual counseling from SCORE, you can do that by using that yellow bit.ly link or going to our website and hitting request a mentor. We also will be sending evaluations after the session today, so it would be helpful to us if you could fill those out. And thanks everyone for attending our live webinar today, and a big thank you to Cliff for all the great information today. And have a great.
Thank you, Bob. And remember, part 2 of this session is going to be on March 21st.
In 2 weeks from today. Okay. Take care. Thanks, Cliff.
Thanks, Bob.
Bye.